Page 121. Flat and as still as a paper doll, while she listened to her father splashing in the shower. Ramona had to think about her eyelids to force them to stay open. Her father got into bed. Her parents were whispering, probably talking about her, saying, "What are we going to do about Ramona? Always getting into trouble. Even her teacher doesn't like her." Everyone was asleep but Ramona, whose eyelids grew heavier and heavier and heavier. She was afraid of the dark, but she would not give up the new room. Only babies were afraid to sleep alone. The next morning, as Ramona took her sandwiches out of the refrigerator and put them in her lunchbox, Mrs. Quimby asked, "Does your throat feel all right?" "Yes," answered Ramona crossly. "Sore throats are going around," said Mrs. Quimby. Since she had gone to work in the pediatrician's office, she looked for symptoms in her daughters. Last week it had been chickenpox spots, and the week before, swollen glands. "Mama, I had a bad dream last night." "What did you dream?" "Something was chasing me, and I couldn't run." The dream was still vivid in Ramona's mind. She had been standing at the corner of the house where the zinnias used to be. She knew something terrible was about to come around the corner of the house to get her. She stood as if frozen, unable to lift her feet from the grass. She had been terrified in her dream, and yet the yard looked clear and bright. The grass was green, the zinnias blooming in the shades of pink and orange and scarlet, so real Ramona felt she could have touched them. Beezus was rinsing her cereal bowl under the kitchen faucet. That old dream," she remarked. "I've had it several times, and it's awful." "You did not." Ramona was indignant. Her dream was her own, not something passed down from Beezus, like an old dress or old rain boots. "You're just saying that." "I did too have it." Beezus shrugged off the dream as of little importance. "Everybody has that dream." "Ramona, are you sure you feel all right?" asked Mrs. Quimby. "You seem a little cranky this morning." Ramona scowled. "I am not cranky." "Another dream I don't like," said Beezus, "is the one where I'm standing in my underwear in the hall at school and everybody is staring at me. That is just about the worst dream there is." This, too, was a familiar dream to Ramona. Not that she was going to admit it. Beezus needn't think she dreamed all the dreams first. Mrs. Quimby looked at Ramona scowling by the refrigerator with her lunchbox in her hand. She laid her hand on Ramona's head to see if she was feverish. Ramona jerked away. "I'm not sick, and I'm not cranky," she told her mother, and flounced out the door on her way to another day in room 1. When Ramona reached Glenwood School, she trudged into the building where she sat huddled at the foot of the staircase that led to the upper grades. She wondered what it would be like to spend her days in one of the upstairs classrooms. Anything would be better than the first grade. "What if I don't go into room 1?" she thought. "What if I hide in the girls' bathroom until school is out?" Before she found the answer to her question, Mr. Cardoza came striding down the hall on his way to the stairs. He stopped directly in front of Ramona. Mr. Cardoza was a tall, thin man with dark hair and eyes, and he made Ramona sitting there on the bottom steps, feel very small. Mr. Cardoza frowned and pulled down the corners of his mouth in a way that made Ramona understand that he was poking fun at the expression on her face. Suddenly he smiled and pointed at her as if he had made an exciting discovery. Startled, Ramona drew back. "I know who you are." Mr. Cardoza spoke as if identifying Ramona was the most interesting thing that could happen. "You do?" Ramona forgot to scowl. "You are Ramona Quimby, also known as Ramona Q." Ramona was astonished. She had expected him to tell her, if he knew who she was at all, that she was Beatrice's little sister. "How do you know?" she asked. "Oh, I get around," he said, and whistling softly through his teeth, started up the stairs. Ramona watched him take the steps, 2 at a time, with his long legs, and suddenly felt more cheerful enough to face room 1 once more. A teacher from the upper grades knew the name of a little first grader. Maybe someday Mr. Cardoza would be her teacher too. Chapter 8, page 128. Ramona says a bad word. The more Ramona dreaded school, the more enthusiastic Beezus became, or so it seemed to Ramona. Mr. Cardoza had his class illustrate their spelling papers, and guess what? It was easy. Beezus, who always had trouble drawing because she felt she had no imagination, had no trouble drawing pictures of ghost and laundry. One day Beezus came home waving a paper and looking especially happy. For language arts, Mr. Cardoza had asked his class to list 5 examples of several different words. For pleasant, Beezus had listed picnics, our classroom, Mr. Cardoza, reading, and school. When Mr. Cardoza had corrected her paper, he had written thanks beside his name. For a joke, she had also included his name as an example under frightening. And his red penciled comment was, "Well." Beezus received an A on her paper. Nothing that pleasant ever happened to Ramona, who spent her days circling sentences in workbooks, changing first letters of words to make different words, and trying to help Davy when she could, even though he was in a different reading circle. Then, one afternoon, Mrs. Griggs handed each member of Room 1 a long sealed envelope. "These are your progress reports for you to take home to your parents," she said. Ramona made up her mind then and there that she was not going to show any progress report to her mother and father if she could get out of it. As soon as she reached home, she hid her envelope at the bottom of a drawer under her summer play clothes. Then she got out paper and crayons and went to work on the kitchen table. On each sheet of paper she drew in black crayon a careful outline of an animal. A mouse on one sheet, a bear on another, a turtle on a third. Ramona loved to crayon, and crayoning made her troubles fade away. When she had filled 10 pages with outlines of animals, she found her father's stapler and fastened the paper together to make a book. Ramona could make an amazing number of things with paper, crayons, staples, and Scotch tape. Bees' wings to wear on her wrists, a crown to wear on her head, a paper catcher's mask to cover her face. "What are you making?" asked her mother. "A coloring book," said Ramona. "You won't buy me one." That's because the art teacher who talked to the PTA said coloring books were not creative. She said children needed to be free and creative and draw their own pictures. I am, said Ramona. I'm drawing a coloring book. Howie has a coloring book. And I want one too. I guess Howie's mother missed that meeting. Mrs. Quimby picked up Ramona's coloring book and studied it. Why, Ramona, she said, sounding pleased, you must take after your father. You draw unusually well for a girl your age. I know. Ramona was not bragging. She was being honest. She knew her drawing was better than most of the baby work done in room 1. So was her printing. She went to work coloring her turtle green, her mouse brown. Filling in outlines was not very interesting, but it was soothing. Ramona was so busy that by dinner time she had forgotten her hidden progress report. Ramona forgot until Beezus laid her long white envelope on the table after the dessert of canned peaches and store macaroons. Mr. Cardoza gave us our progress reports, she announced.